Hi, I'm Senator Mark Warner. I want to welcome you all to Charlottesville. I wish I was there with you, but I wanted to check in with video for all the housing leaders across the Commonwealth. I want to first of all say thanks for all your work and really appreciate what you do in Virginia. I know you want to hear about some of the recent news reports on legislation I'm working on with Senator Bob Corker on GSE reform. But first, let me cover some of the budget and QM issues that I know are also very relevant to you all. First, you've probably heard from me before that I am obsessed about the unsustainable fiscal path that our nation's been on for some time. You know, we're close to $17 trillion in debt, and there's nothing that is self-correcting about this problem. Time alone will not solve the problem. We've got to acknowledge what every serious bipartisan group who's looked at this problem has come up with. We need additional revenue, we need more targeted, smarter spending cuts than sequestration, and we need entitlement reform. And that means that Republicans are going to have to be willing to find a way to allow us to generate some more revenue, and Democrats are going to have to be willing to go ahead and recognize that our entitlement programs have to be put on a stronger fiscal path. I actually believe getting our balance sheet right will do more for job creation and, for that matter, for housing than any other simple individual program. You've also heard me say that the way we are going about some of our cuts, sequestration, is the stupidest way possible to go about cutting the federal government. You know, and in certain areas, this is actually costing the taxpayer more money than the supposed cut. In housing specifically, the effects of sequestration on HUD programs are even more damaging because HUD serves such a vulnerable population. Extremely low-income families make up over 75% of HUD-assisted households. The family that HUD helps had an average income of only $12,500 in 2012. So we've got to find a way to make sure that we can move off sequestration and do smarter cuts with a forward-looking revenue stream, enhanced revenue stream, and meaningful entitlement reform. We've got to check our Democrat and Republican hats and put the country first in terms of our budget. In terms of overall housing, I think you know better than I that the housing market is showing steady improvement. And housing prices have actually helped Fannie and Freddie's profits increase, as you probably read about. Matter of fact, some of those profits one-time, all-time highs. You know, as you again would know better than I, at the time of the housing market collapse, and then for a couple years afterwards, an average home stayed on the market for about 14 months. Now that median time has come down to about 5 months, which is much more back with historical averages. The market conditions also have led to an increase in employment in the housing industry. Now, typically, housing contributes almost 18% to our GDP. Right now, we're just a little bit over 12%, but we're moving up. I also know that one of the things that many of you are concerned about is the ramifications of Dodd-Frank. I supported the Dodd-Frank bill because the financial system was in tremendous crisis. And let me assure you, I know there's lots of things about Dodd-Frank that are not perfect. And quite honestly, implementation has been very slow and tedious. In housing in particular, I know everybody at the conference has been following the development of the QM standards. You know, one of the things we're seeing is that these QM standards, while they were supposed to be for only a certain set of the market, are becoming, in effect, the de facto standard across the board. I've heard that Wells and some of the other major institutions are starting to use those as the overall market indicator, not just for those products that would qualify for QM. We've got to do better, but I do think, considering the concerns that the housing industry and the banking industry and others had before the Consumer Bureau started on this project, I do believe that the Consumer Bureau got about 80 to 85% of the QM right. And the good news is that the CFPB is willing to listen to concerns in the market. You, I'm sure, have read that in the last couple of weeks, the CFPB issued amendments to QM, which both the mortgage bankers and the independent community bankers supported. These amendments will allow for us to deal with some of the compensation issues around points and fees calculations so that the originator can be excluded from some of those calculations. It also creates a new category of QM for small creditor portfolios, which was really important for community and small banks and for rural balloon mortgages. It also exempts CDFIs and other nonprofit community development creditors from the ability to repay requirements. So on QM, I think there's a positive step, and I can assure you that I'm going to continue to stay engaged with the CFPB, not just on QM, but also on QRM, and how this overall affects the cost of mortgage credit. Now, that brings me to where I've been spending an enormous amount of time, and that is working in a bipartisan way with my friend, the senator from Tennessee, Senator Bob Corker, for now about 9 months on seeing how can we come up with a practical plan to help us transition the existing Fannie and Freddie role to a more sustainable role for both government and the private sector in housing finance. We've built a broad coalition of members from both parties, and our priorities are pretty simple. One, make sure that we protect the taxpayer from ever having to deal with a bailout again. Two, maintain liquidity in the market. Three, make sure that we ensure access to credit for all types of lenders, both large and small, and we make sure that there's a wide availability of credit for a wide range of borrowers, including those first-time borrowers. Everyone, including my Republican colleagues who we're working with, have said we do need a more explicit but tailored government backstop to make sure that we maintain that liquidity and to make sure that we can keep products like the 30-year fixed mortgage in our portfolio. I believe it's time, though, that, and we're working towards that. Now, getting into the plumbing on housing finance reform is challenging, but I think you're going to be pleased with what we come up with. I also think it's very important that we face up and deal with GSE reform now. I know there are some in the industry and, frankly, some in Washington who said, well, with these record numbers from Fannie and Freddie, maybe we can just allow the system to continue. That's just not going to make sense. We should take advantage of the opportunity that while things are good, while rates are low, to do a rational transition period so that we can truly have a housing finance system that has more private capital at upfront risk, yes, a government backstop, but still the ease, particularly for smaller lenders, to make sure that those that loans that get packaged can be packaged in a security that that the market will receive. I think we're going to continue to make great progress, and I look forward to working with you and everybody in the housing industry to make sure that we get this right. And let me assure you that there will be a piece of this, particularly that will be scheduled and looked at for affordable housing, loan counseling, and other important issues. So a lot on our plate here in terms of housing finance and housing reform in Washington. I wish I could be with you at the conference. I'm going to look forward to getting a report from your good work and your recommendations. I look forward to working with you on these and the other broader issues around budget and debt and deficit as we go forward. Let me close with where I started. A hearty thanks to all of you who try to make the housing market in Virginia as successful as it can be. Good luck at your conference.